Is it true that 100% of the time you have to put your house into your living trust? Stay tuned because we're going to talk about that on today's video. Welcome back. I'm Pantea Fizuni with Palm Desert Law Group. And today we're going to be talking about whether you should put your home into your living trust. Now, what is a living trust? Living trust is basically a way to avoid the probate process. Now, every state has a probate process, which is basically a fancy way of saying a court process that's designed to transfer assets out of your name and into someone else's name after you die. Now, during our lifetimes, it's really easy to transfer assets. If we've got a house, we sign a grant deed. If we've got a car, we sign the pink slip. We can literally physically give someone something. We can gift it to them. It's very easy to transfer things. But obviously, once we die, we no longer have that power. So we've come up over many hundreds of years, a very complicated way in many states, especially here in California, to transfer those assets. Now, when you die without anything, without having a will, without having a trust, the law has a particular set of outcomes that it wants, particular people that it wants your assets to go to. Now, if you want to change that, the only way you can really do that is by either having a will or by having a trust. Now, having a will is not going to avoid the court process. The way to avoid that court process is by setting up a trust. I like to think of a trust as like a safety deposit box at the bank. You get protection for any assets that you actually put in there. So if you've got a Rolex watch and you have that safety deposit box and you put it in there and someone breaks into your home, you've got the peace of mind of knowing that watch is protected because it wasn't in your home when someone broke into it. But if you've left that watch on your nightstand, having that safety deposit box didn't actually help you because your asset wasn't actually in it. It's the same exact thing with the trust. Now, with the trust, it is a legal construct where you, as the grantor, give your assets to a trustee, someone who you are trusting to take care of your assets and to distribute them the way that you want, for the benefit of other people who are called the beneficiaries. Now, during your lifetime, you are going to be both the grantor and the trustee of your revocable living trust. So during your lifetime, you still have complete control. You can buy, you can sell, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. But then, once you pass away, the successor trustee, the person you've named to take the leadership role after you, is responsible for distributing assets to your loved ones, to the people who you have picked after you are no longer there, according to the terms that you have set up. So once again, you've got control over the process. Now, the cool thing about trusts is that not only do they come into effect when you are incapacitated, when you passed away, but also when you're incapacitated. So let's say you end up in the hospital. That successor trustee can step in and still do all of the things that you would have done had you been able to do it until you come out of that incapacity. So there are a bunch of pros to having a trust. As mentioned, it comes into effect if you're incapacitated. If you don't have any other planning, then once you're incapacitated, your family would end up having to go to court in order to take care of things for you, which is called a conservatorship proceeding. This avoids that. Another pro is, as I kind of touched upon, is that when you set up a trust, it avoids the probate process. Now, every state has a probate process. Everyone is slightly different. Here in California, it takes approximately 12 to about 16 months or so to go through that court process from beginning to start. That's when things are absolutely easy peasy, things are clear, there's no issues, there's no conflict. Unfortunately, it really can't go faster than that. And as you can imagine, if there's any type of conflict, it could easily end up taking years or longer. So one of the major pros of having a trust is that you avoid the time delay that's involved with probate. You also avoid the significant costs that are involved. Now, here in California, we estimate that it's about 5% of your total probate estate. So if you've got an estate of about, $500,000, we're talking about $25,000 taking off the top just in mandatory attorney's fees, court fees, executor fees, bond fees, all the little costs that come up. Of course, if you've got $1 million property, that's $50,000, and so on and so forth. So there's significant costs involved with going through the probate process. Also, if you have property in a different state, then you're looking at going through probate, not just in your home state, but in those other states as well. So let's say you live here in California and you have a lake home in Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side, and you pass away, all of a sudden your family is stuck dealing with probate, not only in California, but also in Nevada. But if you have a trust instead, you get to avoid that. You get to avoid probate in both of those states. Next, probate is a completely public process. Because it's a court case, anyone can go onto the court's website, they can pull up the case, they can know what you owned when you died, who's going to inherit from you, when they're going to inherit from you, and so on and so forth. And of course, that leaves at least two populations very, very vulnerable. Those who are very old and those who are very young. So if you've got an 18-year-old who's about to inherit from you, there's going to be major warnings there, because unfortunately there are predators out there who do want to take advantage of people. But if you have that trust, you get to avoid all of that. You get to avoid the time delay that's involved with probate, the costs that are involved with probate. You get to avoid dealing with probate in multiple locations, plus everything can be done in privacy. Plus, on top of that, it also accounts for planning for incapacity as well. So there's a lot of pros to having a trust, especially if you have assets, if you have real property. There are a couple of cons too, so I do want to be fair and I want to talk about those. Really, the major con that comes with it is that there is more paperwork that's involved. If you have a home in your own name, transferring it to the trust, it's not difficult, but it is a grantee that you need to fill out and sign and notarize. There are a couple of other forms you need to go to the county recorders as well. You also want to keep track of things. So if you have separate bank accounts, you do want to make sure that you have bank accounts in the name of the trust. Sometimes banks will let you just change the name. Oftentimes they'll make you open up new bank accounts. And of course, if you've got auto pay set up, it can be a major pain, but it's one of those pains that it's absolutely worth it to go through once and then have the peace of mind of knowing that you're avoiding court, you're avoiding conflict for your family, for your loved ones. You get to avoid all the bad things that come along with probate. Another small con is that there is some more record keeping that is required. Now, if you are the grantor and the trustee during your lifetime, you don't have to worry about any separate taxes or anything. Any income that you have from any real property in the trust is just going to show up on your personal taxes. So that's not really that big of a deal. But if someone else ends up being the trustee, there is some more record keeping that's involved. So we started off this video asking the question of whether you should put your house into your trust 100% of the time. Now, as we've gone over, the pros definitely outweigh the cons with transferring and putting your house into your trust. Can I say with 100% certainty, 100% of the time? No, because there's always that outlander, there's always that, complicated situation that comes up. But I can confidently say that at least 9 times out of 10, it absolutely makes sense to put your house into your living trust. Now, if you've got any particular questions about whether you should put your house into your living trust, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. My name is Pantea Fizzuti with Palm Desert Law Group, and my information should be on the screen. Looking forward to talking to you and seeing you next time.